You are about to enter. Open your eyes. Open your eyes. Open your mind. Open your mind. Open your hearts. It is time to reveal. Time to unlock. Time to listen and hear the truth. The secret mysteries, hidden agendas, dark cabals, all come to light. Behold, hot come. My name is Salim Siddiqui, and this is the strangest story you have ever heard. All right, a questioner is asking about the concepts related in the story of truth. We talked a lot about the different concepts of prophets being archetypal characters and how you relate your life and the scenes in your life to their stories. And one of the questions that came in, I think via email, was whether you follow each prophet in order, such as you go through a first stage Adam test and then a second stage Noah test and so on down the line, ending towards the final messenger, or whether you go through similar experiences one after the other, or do you take them individually or separately, or how do you actually understand the scenes? Now, this is actually an interesting question. I wanted to take a little bit of time to talk about this concept and break it down. Now, we know that when we're talking about the cycle or the system or the actual fundamentals of our faith, that we have certain things implied. One, that we believe in Allah. Two, there are angels and jinns or other creations. And that Allah created Adam, man, and from Adam gave messengers and books, going from Adam through Abraham, Noah, the prophet Moses, Jesus, Solomon, David, all the way to the final messenger Muhammad. And that these prophets were sent in a certain order, fulfilling certain roles and attributes for mankind or for their tribes or their nations, and getting all the way down from Adam all the way to the messenger, that there is a evolutionary life cycle or a story pattern. One of the things we talk about is understanding the story from beginning to end, that we start with Adam and we end with the final messenger Muhammad, that there is an order and a sequence and a reason why each of them came to perform certain roles and certain characteristics in order. Now, that being said, they each had roles that they had to fulfill for the sake of the Lord, meaning as prophets or as messengers, but they also had individual roles with fathers and sons and husbands and wives and children and daughters and sons, and the various relationship struggles, the various economic struggles, the various political struggles for their time. So each of the messengers went through their own personal learning journey and also contributed in their role, some to just a small handful, some to a large delegation. Some were just prophets gifted with the gift of prophecy and expressing their prophecy, and some were messengers given messages of prescribed laws and rules and methodologies to govern and rule whole nations. Now, we know that in these character roles, the final messenger has been revealed, the final text has been revealed, so there's no new law coming. You don't get to have your own dreams and your own character and come up with your own laws or rules, right? We're all followers of the final messenger, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That's what it means to be Muslim. We're accepting this final word of the Lord, we're accepting this final messenger, and we're containing our roles as being archetypal roles as his followers, that we're accepting the pattern of messengers in succession, and that they had books in succession, وَلَا نُفَرِّقُ بَيْنَ أَحَدٍ مِّنْهُمْ, that we do not differentiate between any of them, that each of them is exactly where they needed to be, doing what they needed to do, when they needed to do it, right? That it is an interesting thing in the Quran that the verses are not gathered in chronological order, and the story is not told in chronological order, starting from Adam and going to the Prophet Muhammad. Actually, it's in a very different pattern. You have to actually learn that story or read that story or hear that story from beginning to end in another way, from another source, from another method. Now, this brings us to the concept of how do we then take our rules. Now, clearly, we follow the messenger, right? We follow the final messenger, and we follow the guidance of all the messengers. That doesn't mean that we apply the societal rules of the time of Enoch to today. No, we have the societal rules of the messenger for this time, which is the holy messenger Muhammad. But as far as taking the moral and spiritual guidance, the moral lessons from all the prophets, the stories are in the Quran, given to us now, spoken by Allah and given to the Archangel Gabriel and revealed by the Prophet in our current now time for a reason. Allah could have chosen not to mention any of the past prophets, but he did for a reason, so that we could see their stories, hear their words. And the Quran is very much written in a first-person narration, that a lot of the situations with the messengers are done in first-person dialogue, where he said this to his father, and then the father said this, and then Allah says something, and then the messenger says something. And it's a very narrative, oral type of recital. It is something to be recited and performed and expressed. And so then we go into, how do we understand our own rules? Of course, we all have lessons that we're repeating over and over every day. We have the normal stuff that we have to do as part of being the Ummah of Muhammad, or the people of Muhammad, where we pray, we fast, we give charity, we do the normal stuff. We wear our clothes, we go to the bathroom, we eat, we do the human interactions. We have mothers and fathers, brothers and sisters. But then it comes to, how do we pick our main life goals, or our main life struggles, or sometimes our primary tribulations or trials in life? It is at those times where we tend to seek more the guidance of the messengers and see, okay, what struggle am I in? What trial am I in? And we try to find comparisons with some of the other messengers and see how they worded their expression, and we try to express ourselves in a similar way, and therefore break free from the repetitive cycles that we're in by following literally their example. Now, which messenger, which scene, which role are you actually filling out? Understanding the nuances of what's happening and seeing the perspective of what scene you're in comes from trying different things, searching out, learning more about the lives of those who came before us, the lives of the pious people who lived before us, the pious predecessors, the Salaf as-Salih, and the example of all the messengers, and figuring out what they were trying to intend and do, and us trying to intend and do a similar thing. Now, of course, the background has changed, the time has changed, the language has changed than what it was before, but the true intent of their hearts is still there. I found an interesting post called Universal Flow. It came out, strangely, Sunday, 11th November, 11/11, 2012. It's a message from Sarah Jane. Now, sometimes we have different posts and channelings that we go through, but when I got this question about the different roles and I happened to read that post that day, I thought it would be interesting to share it with you. A message from Sarah Jane, Sunday, 11th November 2012. The Universal Flow. As we continue to awaken and stir, there is a powerful air of inspiration stirring deeply within that is calling each of us to step consciously into the universal flow in order to become whole. Part of this process involves letting go of the resistance, something we all have on some level, for that is part of being human. And this takes courage, vision, and strength, for it involves facing our truth and facing our souls and letting go of the storylines and beliefs that have molded, shaped, and defined our lives. So it's an interesting first section here. She talks about there is an actual awakening, and there are those of us who feel it, and it's an inspiring thing that stirs deeply within you. And it's like there's a calling for you to become one, or for you to become in tune, for you to become in sync with what she's calling the universal flow, the universal order, for you to become whole, or what you might call your truer or higher self. And she talks about this being a process of letting go of the resistance that we have as human beings, and that it takes courage, a lion-hearted courage, for example, or vision, an eagle's eye vision, or strength and determination, such as man, to find your truth, facing your own soul, and letting go of the storylines, she says, that there are multiple storylines, there are multiple roles, there are multiple adventures. This is a choose-your-own-adventure, alternate reality, multiverse, multiple realities, many realities going at the same time, and you are choosing constantly which storyline you want to pick. And that's why the prophet said, follow the same path, follow the straight path, follow the mustaqim path. Don't be diverged from your true line, from the true center, because shaitan constantly tries to get you off your true storyline. And so we've got this resistance of letting go of what we think is true, what has been molded or shaped into our belief. She goes on to say, life experiences often create storylines and belief patterns, for this is our way of understanding the experience and making sense of what happened. Yet all too often such storylines can stifle and contain our true essence as we try to protect ourselves and avoid feeling that way again. Of course, not all storylines are negative in essence, but even positive ones can end up stifling, for they can dance and sway, taking us away from being centered and feeling whole. We can get lost in the dance and lose sight of the bigger picture and the journey home to self. So she goes on to talk about this concept that we've been talking about, that you have the ability to choose the right, wrong, left, right storyline at any time. As a matter of fact, you have the ability to choose 1% to the right, 2% to the right, 3% to the right, and you can keep going on as many tangents as you want. But then there are convergence points. There are points where time folds in on itself, where the ripples return back to center. And we seem to be heading to a convergence point where those of us who are aware of this are recognizing it, that lines are merging back together. And so we have to be aware of not going too far to the left so that we get lost, or too far into the excitement and the energy of the happiness of the moment that we get swayed into the dance, right? And sometimes we talk about this in concepts of music or rhythm, that sometimes the music overtakes you, where you get so lost in the music that you forget to center yourself, right? Everything is a balance. If you sway too far left or right, the pendulum will crack, and you somehow have to keep that balance. Because your true self, your true home, is a very centered, focused place where you are not swayed by anything, but you are free to experience everything, where none of the lower things have control over you, where now you are open to everything because you have become whole. You are your true self. The next paragraph goes on to say, there are times when we need to face our storylines and lean into them in order to understand them. But there are times when we need to acknowledge them and set them free. Sometimes trying to understand them becomes onerous and draining, for we can become even more consumed by them in the process. It is important to accept that these storylines have shaped and defined our lives, but at the same time, it is important to realize that they only continue to shape our lives if we allow them to. So yes, it's important to define yourself by that which is your highest calling, that which is what the noble messengers call to, that we define ourselves by what the Creator calls us to, by what the messengers taught us to be, more than the lines that we think are important about ourselves. It's one of the important things about your name or your character, the things in fate that were decided prior to you being in the realm of forgetfulness, right? We all make choices every day, sometimes good, sometimes bad, and they're always affected and manipulated by even our own egos and our own self. But then there are things chosen by fate. Your gender, your sex, your race, your name, things that happen upon your birth that you have no choice to. Those things tend to be more anchored or more pillared to your higher self, and understanding who your relatives are, who you came into the journey with, who you met and saw, right? Your relatives is one of the things that you don't choose. It's one of the things chosen before your soul entered. It's not a free will choice within the matrix. And so therefore, it does have a higher value. Honor thy mother and father. After your mother and father, your grandparents or your parents' brothers and sisters, your aunts and uncles, and all the relatives in succession, or what we call ilm al-warith, the laws of inheritance, meaning more than just who you get money from when they die, but who is in the level of the matrix in rippling succession, close or far from you. What does have more or less weight to you? Which relationships have more value? And then to make Allah, the Lord, the Creator, and His messenger, and all the other messengers more cherished and beloved to you than anyone else, because of you honoring their roles, their wisdom, their activity, right? Understanding this is the whole journey. Not letting it consume you and being willing to let go. Sometimes we get so adamant in our own journey that, no, I'm got to do this. This is my mission. No. You have to be willing if fate allows you to in the right moment, but just as much be willing to let go and know that it might be someone else's, perhaps your children, perhaps somebody on the other side of the world. That if the river doesn't turn towards you, you can't change the direction of the river, right? So having that understanding, such a realization is a big one. For once we can accept this, we can see that by changing these storylines, we can change the shape of our lives. This is not a new concept, but it is one that so many struggle with. Self-knowledge and self-awareness is power. And when we open up to this and embrace it, we stop being powerless pawns in the storylines of our lives and instead become the author with pen in one hand and a fresh, crisp page in the other. Whilst this doesn't mean that we won't face challenges or hardships on the road ahead. It does mean that our perceptions of this have changed, enabling us to realize the true and majestic force of our strength, our courage, and our truth, so that we can face the future with vision, power, and love. You see how she phrases the concepts in such a beautiful way, that you must be able to understand that this is the very trueness of your own heart and a very higher calling that you were created for. To be able to envision that truth and see that Allah created you for something more, that He put the very light of soul within you for something more, and then be able to imagine and envision and plan out and intend with a pen in hand and a crisp, clean page. Here's what I intend to do for the true reason, and then seeing that goal manifest. So as we sit with pen poised and ready to write the next chapter of our lives, we need to be clear about what we truly want. Whilst many of us have ideas and dreams, goals and visions, shaping these into something more tangible is important. For if we cannot know what we want, how can we write it into being? We all have different perceptions of abundance, happiness, joy, wealth, and bliss. And this is what makes humanity such a diverse and complicated, heaving mass of souls. Yet it seems important now to have the courage to stand up tall in order to declare our own vision of abundance and to connect to the intent of this vision in order to give it shape, energy, and form. As we rewrite the story of our lives and let go of the storylines that no longer define us, we can feel like a true part of the universal flow. We become one with it and become it as we merge with the currents and find our true state of being. That was a channeled message from Sarah Jane Grace. You can find other channelings from her. Of course, you always have to pay attention and read and feel for yourself, but she posts her channelings at www.theplanetwhisperer.co.uk. I find a lot of strange stuff comes from all over the world, not just here in the West, Canada, the United States, but all over the place. And so you see this concept being mentioned by everybody, that it's time now for you to manifest your own intent, plan it out, write it down, figure out a way to express it, whether it's in song, whether it's in creativity, whether it's in art, whether it's in the story. One of the things we do here on Hot Conflicts is talk about the story and talk about expression and talk about pop culture and creativity and music and poetry and speech and the signs and symbols in the very expression that has been used in the ancient word and the modern word, and try to make people understand things at a deeper spiritual level and go through the personal journeys that we're all going through. And to answer the question, this is what it's all about, the day-to-day struggle, that if you were to have come to the final place, you would have finished your journey. But no, brothers and sisters, you're alive. And it is by continuously searching and finding what resonates for you out of the words, which stories seem to make your heart stir, what scenes really hit you deeply, and why does that relate to you? And you know why I thought of that? Well, this happened to me yesterday, and then I had a dream, and then I was reading this post, and then I decided to ask you a question, Brother Salim, on the Hot Conflict radio show, and then you read this strange post, and it hit me so deeply, and then I had a strange thought, and then, oh, brothers and sisters, I long to hear your comments. I long to hear your questions. I'm waiting for you to tell me the strange and the weird, the supernatural. Call me anytime at 760-825-0949. We cover the weird and the supernatural here every Thursday night at midnight on the HotConflict.com radio show. You are listening to Hot Conflict Radio. Calling live every Thursday night, midnight, 12 a.m. Eastern. Call in to get your questions and comments live on the air. Dial into the show by phone 760-825-0949. You can dial in from the site on Blog Talk Radio using Skype or through a regular phone calling in at 760-825-0949. That's 760-825-0949. Get your questions and comments live on the air, talking about the weird and the wild, the strange and the supernatural, things that go bump in the night. Get on HotConflict.com.